And I'm Nalita, and we're not crazy. We're here. We talk about mental health. It's focused on on neurodiversity and specifically ADHD and autism. And this week we're talking about working memory. Awesome. Working memory. Working memory is one of the executive functions. So, depending on where you look, you'll find there could be seven, there could be eight, there could be 12 executive functions. It just means that certain things have been broken down more. So, we have a few that we want to cover separately. So, today we're going to start with the working memory, but just to kind of give you an idea about executive functions. So, executive functions are brain functions that help us manage everyday tasks. And that's like making plans, um, solving problems, adapting to new situations. And these skills develop throughout life, but decline with age. So, that's for anyone. This is not particular to neurodiversity, ADHD, or anything like that. So, it's kind of like one of those things you say, um, does everyone who has executive function issues have ADHD? No. But does everyone who has ADHD have executive function issues? More than likely, from what we understand. And it's kind of the core of a whole lot of things. So, with that said, we're starting with working memory, but let me just kind of give you an overview of what they are. The executive functioning, we have working memory, flexible thinking, which is so working memory is just keeping key information in mind while using it. Flexible thinking is adjusting behaviors to unexpected change. Time management, pretty self explanatory. Task initiation, and that's to take action to get started on a task. Planning and prioritizing to set and meet goals. Organization, planning things carefully, keeping things tidy, and working effectively. Focus and attention, kind of self explanatory. Self monitoring is how we operate in the world when we're interacting. And impulse control, thinking before acting. Emotional control, keeping our feelings in check. So these are just generally the executive functions. Again, they've been broken down some, but some things are kind of in the same areas. So, starting with the working memory, just to give an idea of what we're talking about. So, what working memory is, it's a process that takes place in a section of the brain, which is what they call the prefrontal lobe, and it allows us to hold pieces of information while we're simultaneously using it to do complete things, tasks, projects, whatever it is. And so, again, it's just simply keeping important information in mind while we're trying to do a thing. It sounds simple. This is what everyone has. But when it's impaired, like it is with those of us with neurodiversities, but in particular ADHD, um, it can be difficult to hold on to the information, even for 10 seconds, for instance. So it's you have to hold it long enough to use it. So you know how we'll be saying something and it'll be like, oh, wait, let me say this. And then somebody comes in there and throws in something.
Or your kid asks you a question.
Or that. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I, I was just getting ready to say something. And but see, the thing is, this probably happens to everybody periodically. But this is our life. It's like this is on the daily. This is what makes things so difficult in so many ways. So, so another thing is like, so you can lose track of where you were. I've been in a conversation going somewhere for sure. And I'll be talking, saying the thing, headed toward the crescendo of what my whole thing is about. And suddenly you lost it. I'm like, and I've said it to people who know him. It's like, you know what? I don't even know where I was going with that. Yeah, that's
Just completely lost.
I'll have a whole point and then I'll lose it immediately, and I'm like, dang it. I'll let you know when I remember.
Yes. Sometimes it might come back, and sometimes it may not. That is both. It can be funny, but it can also be very frustrating.
Because sometimes it'll be important information. It's like it's not like you choose, oh, it wasn't important and that's why you forgot. It could be something totally important, and then I'll remember later. I'm like, that's what I was gonna ask. Like, and that's the thing about it. Like, people think, you know, it's something it has something to do with like selective memory, or selective hearing, what you choose to hear, but it's not necessarily.
No, it's true. It's like it's literally, if you think about, let's just say there's a certain capacity. So let's say it's this big, right? So you say in this, let's hypothetically say 4 ideas or words or sentences or whatever can fit right here. So you're trying to do a thing with these things, and then, but all somebody has to do is say something or do something to distract from what it was, and it replaces something, and that other thing is going to fall out.
You know what I think of it actually? What I was thinking about the other day, I was thinking of like, I have a thought, and then something else happens, or another thought comes, and it's like it overlaps over the other thought. So I can't see it. I can't connect with it anymore.
Look, there's not enough space. You can't hold all that. And it's gonna go somewhere. If you may be able to get it back, but you may not. And so that's the key. What's key about anything when you know you have a deficit, back to being aware of certain things, because then you, first of all, you can explain things to people. And you can say, hey, I have a tendency to lose my train of thought. So is it possible I can get my thought out and say what I need to say before you throw something in there, because I will probably forget. That's one way. Communicating with people about where you are.
It can also be like, while I'm talking and I'm saying something, I'm like, where was I going? I decided to segue into another. I'd be like, oh yeah, I have to tell you this story before I get to here. And I tell one story, and it's like,
which is why we were talking about how Amanda and I we've gone through conversations where we start here, we go over here, go over there, come back, and then still come back to that thing, and that was like Barbara.
Oh, what we're talking about? Oh yeah,
started back to it like it never left, and that's and that's why. We just didn't know what that was, because other people would be like, "What? What were you talking about?" So it's just, but it can challenge you in various things in daily life, and that's the difference between. It's like everything with ADHD, for instance. People say, "Well, everyone this and everyone that." Yes, not new things that are invented. What it is the effect that it has upon daily life. It's like, yes, some people are forgetful at times, some people, all the things, but it's like, if this is such an impactful part of your daily life, it's not as simple as all you have to do is, and that's
what they don't understand is people who are neurodivergent are navigating these same things every day and are stressed to try and figure out how to avoid it, but some things are inevitable. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like busting a mission every day to try and think of how to not be forgetful and things like that. Like, it's a mission every day to have
every day the same that, and it's the same things, and that's what people. So I like, just for examples. So like in terms of negative effects that it could have. So one thing is, a lot of times we can be considered rude, because sometimes we interrupt, because what happens is we hear something and it's right there, and really we're afraid we're going to forget it if we don't say it. And so sometimes we'll blurt out, and especially kids, but even as an adult, I keep touching this thing. Even as an adult, I have been known to do that. So I really do try to work on it. Or to say, is it possible I could just interject this, because I might forget
I
it.
don't even. I have to go like, let's stop you for a second. Let me stop you for a second. Let me say what I gotta say, please.
So another thing is, um, when I need something to, like something pops in my head. Let's say I'm driving, um, and I can't write it down, and it's like it's right there, and I'm just so upset because like I know it's gonna go, or at least for a long time, it's gonna be gone because I can't say, oh, this, da, 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 and write it down. Because remember, what was that? A couple of weeks ago, I asked you, I said, oh, can you put this down for me? Because I was doing something and I couldn't. I was like, just put it down. Yeah. And because I will not remember it. Yeah. And so again, knowing it is helpful, but it can be very stressful. Or how about, I think we had mentioned this before, putting something in a specific place in that moment where you just are sure you're going to remember. I'm going to remember I put this thing in this closed drawer that has other things in it.
And then you'll come back the next day. Where the heck is my? Yes. And you're like, where did I put it? And then it's not till like a year later you finally find it, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a year right there. Every year, if not more.
And then this is one, and this, making phone calls, needed phone calls, like remembering. Oh yeah, I need to call blah blah for this.
No. Well, when it comes to phone calls, I was thinking of a different, kind of a different example, basically. Like, I've had conversations with you, and you'll be like, don't forget to, send me the money for this, or oh, don't forget to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I won't forget. And as soon as I hang up, it's gone.
I know. And that's why I always say, and I'll be like, no, do this right now, or send this right now, or text this right now, because you are going to forget it. You always say, you're like, oh, I'm going to do that. Oh yeah, I'm going to do it after I do this.
It happens a lot, especially when you feel like on the phone too. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to forget. But as soon as I hit end call, it's over. Like,
because something can happen just in that moment. Yeah. All it has to do is someone say something.
Nothing does happen.
Well, I'm saying,
or nothing. Literally nothing has to happen. I could just hang up and I'll be like, space out again.
Yeah. But it's really weird. Or answering text, because I tell people all the time, it's like, I answered that text in my mind, but I really did think I answered it. I was like I would go back, or I even typed it, but didn't send it.
Yeah, that too.
And I'm like, ooh, I thought That's so true. And so again, people who know you, love you, understand that you can, like, they know that it's not you. It's not that you don't care. It's not that you're just saying whatever. It's like, this is her. It's not something that I don't want to do. It's not that I don't want to respond. It's just that if I don't do something in that moment, it's gone, because other things are going to come take its place. It doesn't even have to be something that's being done, because with all the things that are racing in the brain, it's just, it can get lost. Yeah, in that. So
I had to explain that to my coworker. He has my number and he likes to text. He's a texter. I'm not, because there's only so much focus I can have to message someone back and forth. Like, I don't, like, he could text me and I'm like, oh, you didn't text me back after. I'm like, bruh, I texted you a couple of times. After that, useless information is nothing to me, and I can't. Right. I can't reply, or I'll be like, oh, I'll reply back later because it's not that important, and I'll forget. Yeah. So I had to explain that to him, and he's like, that's weird.
So here's the question: what can we do? What things do you do? Or, I'm not going to say you do it all the time, but let's say, what things do you can do that will help you? Because that it is hard for you to keep so much information in any given time.
One of the things you already know, like, if you're telling me not to forget something, I ask you to just text me it. Yeah. Because I don't really like text people like that. And so I don't get a lot of text messages. So when I do get a message and it's like a reminder, I'm like, text me right now so I don't forget. Like when I go to the grocery store, you said, oh, you need eggs? Text me it because I will forget. Don't say, I just need eggs. I'm going to go to the store for everything else and forget about those eggs. Right. But what does help is that, or I like having other people give me a reminder. Yeah, I'm not a good reminder to myself, except for the calendar thing, the little the little whiteboard calendar thing that I have. Actually, that's helped a lot.
And that's probably based on where you have it placed too.
Oh yeah, kinda, right next to my bedroom door. So every time I walk there, every time I wake up in the morning and I get myself ready, it's right next to my dresser. I can't avoid it. It's pretty big right there on the wall, and I mark everything. So when I have a doctor's appointment, I try to write it right there as soon as possible. And if I have anything else going on, that calendar will say, I'm like, oh shoot. And I try to mark it every day for everything I do so I don't forget to look at it and interact with it daily. So that's kind of helped me. Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say has helped you in this situation?
Man, it's hard. This is really hard because there's still parts of me that feel like, okay, I got this. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it's like, oh yeah. And then I just move on. And then it's like something was supposed to be happening. You know, like I went this way for something specific to what I was trying to do. But now, because of just a slight interruption or whatever, I forgot what it was that I was doing. And you know how back in the day, somebody say, oh, well, it must not have been important. You know, I start to realize, no, that's not true.
No, it's not.
It's not true. You can forget some really important stuff.
I've been told about the things like I forget and things like that. It's because you don't want to remember. It's like, that's not the case. Yeah. I never, you know what, and I think like birthdays and things like that. Oh, I forgot like birthdays. You tell me your birthday, it is my plan to remember it. But I honestly like, even if I know my birthday is the next day, when I wake up the next morning, sometimes I wake up like it's another day. And then I'm like, oh shoot, it's my birthday. Like, and people, you know, especially with friendships and stuff like that, I've struggled because they're like, oh, you didn't remember my birthday? You must not care about me. And it's like, oh, I do. I forget my own birthday. You know, and it's hard to explain that to people, you know, especially people who are really good at remembering those kind of things. There are those people, but it's like,
I think I'm pretty good overall. Well, I'm pretty good at knowing the date. Remembering that it's the date, and that's the problem. That's another thing.
And like, and also preparing. My goal is to always like try to do something to let somebody know I remembered their birthday. You know what I mean? Write something real quick or give them a little happy birthday text or something. And it's like if that day I wake up every day like, oh, it's another day because I'm constantly going at it. When I don't work my 5 days within the week or whatever, I'm on rest mode on Saturdays and Sundays. It's so
or store mode.
Yeah, or some whatever mode I'm in. I just wake up like, here we go. I'm going at it. I gotta attack another day. You know, so the memory for everything, it's not gonna be.
But back to understanding it and understanding it so that you can operate within it. So it's like I do get in the when I can though. I will write something down. I will definitely. I have, you know, in my phone, you know, places where I can just write stuff down. You know, I go to therapy and and I'll get something, you know, a good nugget of information, and I'm like, hold on, let me write that down because my mind thinks I'm going to remember this when I get up, but I won't.
That's why I have so many notes in my phone. Yeah, like it's embarrassing. Like I've just got,
but you have list of notes also. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like there's some things in being intentional in what you're doing. So I'm like, I'm writing this down because this is an actionable something and I plan to action on it. So I'm not, you know, this is something.
No, that is what I have like laid out plans in several notes for several things. Yeah. So that's why it's embarrassing and kind of difficult to deal with because I still have to try and navigate my memory. I try to write things as soon as something comes to my mind. I'm trying to throw it in my notes and stuff like that. So usually when I do, like the most notes I have, honestly, are the times where I'm out doing something or I'm in my car and I'm driving. I can't write this down, so I'll just put something real quick. Like keywords and things to help me.
No, that won't help me. I would be like, why did I write box? You know,
I have a lot of those. I have a lot of those, but like, and I write them as if they're so important at the moment. I'm like, I gotta put this
gonna
down.
remember this.
And then I look back and I'm like, that was so important when I wrote it. But now it looks.
Now I have no idea. You know, another thing. Well, so the calendar in my phone now they do the. I think I told you, not just events but reminders. So reminders can be by time or place. So, for instance, you know how I have my hand sanitizer in the car, and that's that bottle I just constantly refill or whatever. And so I would forget for days to bring it in the house so that I could refill it. So I realized that thing says place, so I could put home in there. So when I drove up, it said, hey, you know, refill hand sanitizer. And I took the bottle out and did it. Yes. So those kind of things are very helpful because it's in the moment.
Technology has gotten really helpful with certain
now,
things.
and that in some things, but see, that doesn't require me to go into something. See, some of these other apps we were talking about, these productivity apps and things to help people who have these kind of issues, it's too much. I have to remember to go into this app to work with it.
Yeah.
And I need something that I can just kind of quickly say, boom, and then it like does something to help trigger me to do something or remember something. And mostly it's things like little phone calls and things that I have to deal with. So ultimately, it's just understanding that when you have these neurodivergences, especially ADHD, this is working memory is the core of all of the executive functions. As you will see when we cover these other areas, that it comes into play into all of these other things. But the problem is pervasive enough that you have to be consciously aware of where you fall short so you know what strategies to put in place. We're just learning this. We're just figuring things out as we go along. So, you know, hopefully there are people who have some other ideas or some things that you utilize or even some apps that might work a little better than some of the other ones that, you know, I've tried to deal with because I saw it somewhere and they said, oh, this one is really good. Yeah. And then I'm just like, oh, what? And I told you I got a million apps.
And
that I don't
something
use.
that makes it, how do I explain, more available, more accessible for me to go in and out of it.
Right. Yeah, it's got to do something that makes you do that.
I wouldn't even know what that takes, honestly, but it's something about it where it almost makes me want to avoid those apps sometimes.
Well, no, that's exactly what happens. Once I've done it, once I've downloaded it, and this is going to be cool. And then it's not so much.
It's overwhelmed by certain things.
Yeah.
Like when I open an application and when I see so many things to click or so many things to look at, I get overwhelmed by just those things.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to utilize your next, like, I don't even use my, the reminder in the calendar.
Right.
I had trouble using it one time and I never went back.
Right.
Although I know those things, like the way you use it, it looks very helpful.
Yeah.
I struggle with
And the other things about it, it has three different levels of notification. So there's like
that's what I'm
mild, medium, or very urgent. So it can give you, but and that works. It's like some things I have on the urgent, so I don't want to ignore it because I can. I used to just have certain notifications and they all came with the same and be like,
and that's my problem. Like I do like that idea of being able to categorize and stuff like that, but my problem is everything's urgent. Like so that's
but you're not doing them all at the same time is the thing. It's just like one thing, like right now, this thing. Oh, okay. This thing just came up. Let me go ahead and put. That's it. I'm not sitting down, laying out.
No. I cannot. But I'm saying like why? That's what makes it overwhelming because it doesn't matter if I'm thinking about just the one thing that I have to remember. Yeah. That one thing in that moment when I thought about it, it is urgent. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just as urgent as whatever
it may be
comes up. Yeah. And so that's my thing. What I'm talking about getting overwhelmed with trying to use certain things that help you organize and manage your time and your memory, your space, mostly. So that's my thing. I'm still struggling to find what.
But you have one that's good, like you said. First of all, telling someone, having someone to tell. That's very key. I think we've all done that. I've done that with you. I've done it with you as well. And I'll say, "Oh, don't let me forget when we go blah blah blah." I know. I just say it. No, no, he's shaking his head because I'm like, I know he's not gonna remember. That's not the point. But when I say it out loud to somebody,
you're really wasting your time.
I do that today all the time. Like he's the worst person to try to remember stuff. But sometimes I just tell him, "Hey, text me real quick," so I know to look back.
Or like I was like your dad. Now sometimes he's good. He won't remember his own stuff. But if I tell him something about me, he might. It's not always, but sometimes he will. So it'll be like, "Oh, did you ever do that thing?" Yes, thank you. I didn't expect you were going to remember, but thank God you did. So it's just strategies. Everything is about finding the strategy that works, or at least works for now, because things don't always work forever.
Yeah.
But and that's our life. It's really strategizing.
You figure out what works for you, and then sometimes, but maybe in the next month, maybe this didn't work so well, or you something that you up, something in your life where that doesn't work anymore. Exactly. Sometimes you have to figure out, okay, what's another way I can make the best of this, or learn how to give myself better reminders and things like that.
Absolutely. So that's the main thing. We just want to recognize this is a thing. If you think about it to yourself and say, man, I do have that issue where it seems like I'm trying to do stuff and stuff goes away. And there are people who've been older, got diagnosed late. They literally thought they had dementia because they were afraid because they're older, and they're like, is that what it is? And eventually found out through diagnosis that they were ADHD, and working memory is a huge part of that. So it's not that you're dumb, or it's not that you just don't care, or even if people have told you that, or you just, you're lazy. All these things.
People thinking, or I felt like a bad friend a lot for things like that. The whole not remembering, waking up and not giving the happy birthday text as soon as I wake up because I don't even realize what day it is.
No, absolutely.
I don't, and like, that's something that I wish more people would understand. Like it has nothing to do with not caring about somebody or what they say. I can forget what somebody says right after they say it to me.
Yes,
and I really can. Like
yes, you can. You will ask a question based on something I just said, and then you'll be like, "So, blah blah blah."
Yeah,
and I'll be like, "I just said."
Yes, and even names, like learning new people's names. I'm sorry, you just told me you can say, "Hey, my name is Nalita." I'm gonna be like,
No.
and I walk
I
away.
have that
Like,
really, and it was upsetting, kind of, because first of all, people mess up my name all the time, and have a hard time with it, and I understand it. But I would be like kind of priding myself on being able to do the, but it's like as soon as it was introduced, it's like something happened, like I went somewhere, and then like I'm sitting there like I don't remember this person's name, and now I feel crazy because I don't want to say anything to have to say to anybody, hey,
wait till I hear somebody else say, "Hey, man," as soon as I hear somebody else say, "Oh, yeah, Nalita."
Exactly. So that's a big one because that happens all the time. And it's like in my job now, they have things, they have the names on the outside of the cubicles. It is the absolute only way. Because I will not know. But at any rate, that's the crux of this working memory thing. And so if you feel that this sounds like anything that you're experiencing, or any of those other executive functions that we mentioned that you can look up just to get some background. We're going to go over them individually, or some of them we're going to cluster together. But if you're feeling something and it's making your life impacted, don't keep pushing forward and feel that thing and feel like I'm a horrible person. Something's wrong with me. Why do I act like this? Don't let that take you down. You can go see someone, go talk to a professional. and tell them in detail what you're experiencing. And you can even say, I know that some of these are part of the symptomatic things of ADHD or even ASD, autism, and say, what will it take to get evaluated? It's okay. Don't feel shame or anything, because that's been what most people's problem has been for so long. So, but we welcome feedback, questions, or anything you would like us to cover, even.
Any useful tips or advice that you can put in the comments, that would be really great for us. That would be really great for everybody else who looks through the video.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, until we meet again, we just wanted you to know that we are not crazy.